Ladies and gentlemen, tier list video. I'm Jace. I'm a new coach to the league. This is going to be a pretty off-the-cuff video. I have all of the teams loaded up in this document, which has useful moves, useful abilities, and all the Pokemon listed with their speed stats and abilities and stuff. And then the tier list thing here. But I don't really have specific ideas about shared weaknesses or common issues that like the Hawk Talk would have. I just wanted to focus on more off-the-cuff thoughts. So here we go. Let's start with the New York Aqua Jets, Bardo's team. So this team first picked Clefable, which I think probably half the people in the league were considering first picking that Pokemon, honestly. I definitely was. I knew it wouldn't get back to the wheel, but, you know, I was hoping. And then in addition to that, you've got, like, a strong Fire, Water, Grass in Blaziken, Slowbro, Exeggutor, all pretty usable Pokemon. You don't see a lot of them on the ladder. Really, the only Pokemon you ever see on the ladder here is Hariyama and Exeggutor. But I think these Pokemon are all going to prove to be strong in BDSP draft. And then you got Luxray for Intimidate and obviously damage as well if you want to go with the Guts set. Hariyama for that great Fake Out Trick Room setter. And then these low tiers are interesting. Altaria Speed Control, Absol, not the fastest and pretty frail, but if you can get it going, I mean, those Sucker Punches are hitting strong. I believe it still gets knockoff. Does it? Yeah, it does. And it has Will-O-Wisp and Destiny Bond and some other interesting tech things. Fortress, I think he was talking a little bit about this thing being a discount Escavalier. You know, it's got a great typing. Like Jordan says, get good typing. This Pokemon has one weakness, and it's covered by a lot of resistances. Blaziken, Slowbro, Hariyama if you decide to run Thick Fat, Altaria, and, of course, Geodude, you know. So it works here, but I think just it doesn't quite have the damage output. It doesn't quite have the staying power, and it doesn't really have a lot of great supportive moves either, so I'm not sure about it. But I'm excited to see what Bardo does with this Pokemon as a Trick Room Pokemon, because it does have 90 attack, which is not the worst. Skuntank, I think, is a great like budget Dark type. It can actually beat Fairy types. Not that there's a lot of those, and I think Bardo has one of the top two. But I think it can still do work. And then obviously we have a funny period to close out the draft. The thing that with this draft that is the most obvious glaring issue is the fastest Pokemon here is Exeggutor under Sun, and otherwise it's Skuntank at 84. You know, you do have the Altaria for speed control, and I think a lot of these Pokemon do get Thunder Wave as far as status. Yeah, Thunder Wave, Thunder Wave, Thunder Wave, Thunder Wave. But speed control, there is no Icy Wind, there's no anything else that's really letting you go fast, so the only option here really is Tailwind or these like mid-speed Thunder Waves, which really don't count. And this team has a lot of Trick Room options. You have two solid Trick Room setters here with Eggy and Slowbro, although both of them are weak to Fake Out. And then Hariyama, obviously an amazing Trick Room sweeper. Clefable can obviously enable a lot of strategies, right? Clefable plus Slowbro, even if you Fake Out the Clefable before it's Follow Me, you have to Oko the Slowbro, and so the Slowbro with either a Colbur Berry, Wakan Berry, Mental Herb, or something else is just going to be able to set that up. But it's really pretty hard TR, and I'm not sure that I trust hard TR in this format, even with Hariyama, because Protect is common, it can be stalled out, your Pokemon aren't going to be getting a lot of one-hit KOs, even Hariyama with the Guts boost. Your opponents are going to be prepping for that. They're going to be bringing Intimidate. They're going to be bringing Charm and other things to either outslow it and reduce its damage or Protect to stall it out. And then you're just going to be really on the back foot when that Trick Room ends. So overall, I don't adore this team. I think it has a lot of good value picks, and I think it has a lot of cool stuff going for it. Obviously, it has Clefable, who's really strong, and a lot of other strong Pokemon, but I can't put it higher than a B tier. We'll start it there. I may end up moving it down, depending on the other teams. Next up, Jordan, Virginia Vikavolt, Team Fuchsia, I believe. You can't tell from this, but obviously, Shiny Rampardos, Shiny Farfetch'd, I guess, Shiny X-Bud, Shiny Seaking are all going to be Fuchsia in color as well. And, you know, this team, it comes together, definitely. Infernape, obviously not the strongest first pick, but this Pokemon does so many things. It's a great mixed attacker, it has Fake Out, and it has great priority in both Vacuum Wave and Mach Punch, plus strong stabs in Flare Blitz and Close Combat, and a great speed stat. So I think this is definitely a Pokemon that a lot of people had on their radar. Mr. Mime as well is one of those Pokemon that has infinite tools. It is so versatile. This thing has Fake Out, Taunt, Trick Room. It's a Psychic Fairy type with Icy Wind. It's like the only one. Everything else in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl that gets Icy Wind is an Ice or Water type, so that's just crazy. Safeguard, it gets dual screens. Charm, it's fast at base 90. Not the fastest, but still there. It gets both guards, and it gets setup options. I mean, this thing is crazy. Of course, the downside is it's Mr. Mime. It has 40 HP and like 60 defense or less, maybe even like 50. So it's, only going to be able to get away with so much. But still, there's a lot this can do. Obviously, you got the Soundproof with Exploud, and it's a Fairy typing, which not a lot of coaches have. Sableye, I think, is great. Speed control, damage reduction, but again, you've got now 2 Pokemon here that kind of want the Sash. Add on Miss Magius, which wants Sash. Add on Rampardos, which wants Sash, and Farfetch'd, and now you've got a lot of competition for these frail Pokemon. And Infernape, not the bulkiest Pokemon ever, although, no, it does get Slack Off, so could be something there. Slack Off Will-O-Wisp, maybe. Let's see what else we have. Trick Room, Mr. Mime, Trick Room, Miss Magius. Interesting Trick Room setters for this team. When you have a Rampardos, I think you really want Trick Room, but Rampardos is also the slowest, really strong offensive Pokemon, so this team doesn't really have a Trick Room sweeper. I can see it working, but also at 58 it can work under Tailwind, which you have the Suicune, obviously, as well as the Icy Wind for the Mr. Mime. Does Miss Magius, and again, Thunder Wave Miss Magius. Tailwind, yeah. Oh, and then the Quash, of course, from Sableye, which can help anything work. What else? Obviously a weather counter here in Lickilicky, and Sableye with Rain Dance and Sunny Day being able to counter a lot of different styles of teams. And then obviously Suicune here at round 7 is just a great pickup. Being able to be so bulky with Calm Mind, Scald, Icy, doesn't get Icy Wind, right? But it probably gets Ice Beam. And then also Tailwind for speed control. Really, really monstrous Mon. I think Jordan may be a little bit, what's the word? Scarred by Umbreon, and now wants to take Suicune off the board because that Pokemon does exactly the same thing that Umbreon does, except it's just so bulky that all it needs is leftovers. It doesn't even need Moonlight or anything else. I think some of these lower picks are interesting. Seeking, for 7 points, it's really just doing the Lightning Rod with the 1 grass weakness, but it's just not hitting that hard. I mean, it's based like, what, 90? 92? Base 92 attack. And it doesn't get Icy Wind, so mainly it's just going to be using Mega Horn, Aqua Tail, Poison Jab. It can come for sure, especially to protect this Suicune and Farfetch'd, but I'm not so sure about spending points on that when there's other stuff. Exploud, I think, is going to be really overlooked. There's 3 Pokemon here that can combo that well. Soundproof Mr. Mime, and then you can run Soundproof on the Exploud to be able to have Sableye and Miss Magius immune if the opponent doesn't have a lot of ghosts. Arbok, really frail. Even with the Intimidate, not hitting that hard. I mean, you can set up with Coil, but 60 HP, 69 defense, 79 Spadef. I mean, maybe as a Spadef set with like a lot of Spadef investment and then Intimidate, and then maybe pair that with like a Wisp from Sableye, you can make it work, but I don't know if I trust this Arbok to do much besides die. Although it only has 2 weaknesses, so maybe it's taking some neutral hits. Farfetch'd, I think Jordan was saying this was the biggest steal of the draft, but I mean, if you look at these stats, man, you already have a lot of Sash competition. 90 attack is okay, but the speed is terrible, the Spadef is terrible, the defense is terrible, the HP. I don't know how this Pokemon isn't going to just get faked out and not die. Oh, Inner Focus. Okay, then it gets KO'd by something faster than it. The one thing that I think you should watch out with Farfetch'd is Final Gambit, which it has off base 52 HP. But for a 2-point Mon, Scarf it, Final Gambit something, remove another Pokemon, maybe something that gets in the way of Infernape sweeping, or something that can kill Suicune. You got that going on. Overall, I think this team has a lot of interesting pieces, but a lot of these Pokemon, I think, aren't the best value, and I feel like there's, Infernape, Suicune, Sableye, and then everything else is kind of a tech piece more or less, that is coming to some matchup, certainly, and Jordan's really going to have to be creative with his building. Overall, I think this team is probably a C tier. I think the New York Aqua Jets team has more presence on the field. But, I mean, for going with such a specific theme of not just red or not just purple, but specifically this reddish purple hue, and trying to stick to that most of the way, I think Jordan's done a great job, and this team can definitely go far. All right, mono with Wedgehurst Whimsicots. So first pick Murkrow, I think, is kind of a meme, just because you're taking something that has to use a sash right off the bat, and then you're left with not that much offensive potential. Obviously, Murkrow is so strong as a speed control option with Prankster, Thunderwave, Tailwind, and Quash, and it can do Perish Trap and Taunt stuff and other things. It also has, I believe it has Sunny Day and Rain Dance, but let's check that. Yeah, Haze, which is good if you're facing like a Scizor or something else that's setting up, which if you're electric, then that's going to be everything on your team. Yeah, Rain Dance and Sunny Day, as well as Screech and some other interesting things. Psycho Shift, you could run a fucking Flame Orb if you want to, that would be funny. But, again, I just don't know if I trust this Murkrow to be carrying the team like you really want a first pick to do. And in fact, if you look at offense here, you have Rotom Heat, you have Rhyperior, Clamperl, Hitmontop is throwing out close combats. This team does feel quite a bit to me like it is over-invested in support and under-invested in offense. Because, I mean, you can have a draft team that is just 4 strong Pokemon coming to the game. To use, like, Jordan's team, you could have Throw, Thundurus, Escavalier, and Heatran on as your set of 4, and do great with those things. And none of those Pokemon are doing a lot of support things, but you can just have those 4 Pokemon spamming strong stab moves and do great. But if you're bringing, you know, your top 4, just for example, you've got Speed Control, great Speed Control, and other like Disruption and Murkrow. You've got Fake Out, Wide Guard, amazing things. Hitmontop gets Quick Guard as well. Yeah, both Guards and Intimidate, Helping Hand. I mean, great, incredible supportive top 2. Parasect, which, I mean, it's Parasect. Your opponents are going to be prepping. They're going to be bringing their flying moves. They're going to be bringing their Heat Waves and their fire moves as well. But, I mean, it's still got Rage Powder and Spore, so you can't underestimate it. And then all 3 of these are supporting Rotom Heat, and you need Rotom Heat to be doing all the damage. But if your opponent is able to hit Rotom Heat with a Rock Slide, or even with like a Muddy Water or a Surf, maybe you're healing Parasect, you know, maybe Hitmontop's able to resist the Rock Slide, but once this defensive piece goes down, you're done. Rhyperior as well, you know, it's a really strong Pokemon, but it's slow, so you need to get off this Trick Room. Parasect is going to be able to redirect for Girafarig, the Trick Room setter, or Duskull, but a Grass type is going to be immune anyways, and there are certainly Grass types that can taunt or Fake Out or otherwise impair these Pokemon from being able to set up Trick Room. And so Rhyperior, you know, it's going to get destroyed by Water and Grass moves that your opponent has, as well as just a lot of like special moves. Rhyperior's Special Bulk, not as good as you want from like a main damage dealer that's this low. 55 special defense, and you know that's dropping to an Ice Beam unless you're running a Yachi Berry, but then you're not running a Rindo Berry or a Pasho Berry. So Frostless, another great support mon, but this is doing a lot of the same things that Murkrow and Hitmontop are doing. This is doing Will-O-Wisp to weaken Pokemon just like Hitmontop Intimidate. This is doing a Speed Control with Icy Wind just like Murkrow. But you're not doing that much damage. This doesn't have Poltergeist, this doesn't have Triple Axle, so you're using Ice Shard for priority if you want, or Shadow Ball Ice Beam. I'm not sure about that. And then we're getting into the low tiers already. You know, where is the high tier damage dealer? Besides maybe the like Nasty Plot or Choice Specs Rotom Heat. Clamperl, obviously very strong with its damage output, but also very, very frail. I mean, it's a not fully evolved Pokemon, and very slow. So here we see a lot of slow Trick Room Pokemon, but you're really relying on Girafarig and Duskull to set those things, and they're both immune to Fake Out, which is good, but Parasect is your redirector, and they're both, you know, relatively frail, not going to be so easy to get those things to happen. Girafarig, Girafarig with 70, 65, 65. Not the worst, and it's a pretty good typing, being only weak to Dark and Bug, but Dark and Bug type attacks, especially Dark type attacks, not that hard to come by. Tropius is interesting. I don't remember exactly how much Tropius cost, but this one and Aggron also. I mean, you're really stacking up the 4 times weaknesses here, but I'm excited to see how they're used. Aggron, unfortunately, being a Steel and Rock type, it doesn't have Wide Guard, but does have Curse for setup, maybe under the Trick Room as well. This Tropius has a bunch of interesting setup moves, which is cool. I'd love to see, what happens with a physical Tropius or something. But overall, I'm really not sure that this team is going to be able to have the output to compete. So I think this team is also going to be in C tier with Jordan. Okay, New York Ninetales. So this is the second theme team. I think there's at least one more. Yeah, there's Big Brass team, and then Daddy's team also. We'll see whether it's a theme team or not, based on what he says about it. But anyways, this team is, I think, such an interesting theme because you can't immediately identify what it is, besides the fact that, a lot of these Pokemon have a different highest stat, but that just makes for a somewhat well-rounded team. But I mean, when you look at it, it's really just a constraint on drafting, and the team looks cohesive overall. The biggest concern for me is there is no top tier threat here. I think Gyarados counts as a top tier threat, but in draft with the electric weakness, not always the best. However, of course, we see the Donphan. Now it's starting to make sense. Okay, so we have Tangrowth who redirects electric moves, and we have Manectric who is redirecting those electric moves already, as well as Donphan being able to switch in, Yuxi being bulky, Magnezone being bulky as well. And I like this coughing, for cheap. I think it's definitely a strong pickup. So what else is here? Tangrowth, obviously, strong defensive Pokemon, one of the redirecting Pokemon that can actually take a hit, which I think is going to be very useful in this format. Lopunny, super duper full of tech stuff with the Fake Out, with the Klutz Trick, maybe with a choice item or something. Has base 105 after you. I believe it's the fastest after you in the game outside of Chlorophyll, Swiftwind users like that. So you can use that to set a quick Trick Room with Uxie, or if you have a Wall Rain that's set to a Belly Drum or something like that, that could be really interesting. Hitmonchan, obviously a really valuable value pick. I mean, pick 7 Hitmonchan, I think, is really surprising. This Pokemon has Fake Out, this Pokemon has Inner Focus, this Pokemon has Priority Mach Punch that's strong off of Inner Iron Fist if you choose to use it, or of course, Inner Focus is the more likely ability. And you have Quick Guard. I think this Pokemon's going to be really, really strong on this team, and versatile. Volbeat starting week 2. I mean, it's better than Vulpix, obviously. Especially with this team only having 1 Chlorophyll and Tangrowth, who really doesn't care about its speed anyway, since it wants to be collecting Rage Powder. Although, I mean, Sleep Powder works as well. But then 50 speed, But Volbeat, Volbeat is interesting because it is a prankster Pokemon, but it doesn't get Tailwind, and it doesn't get String Shot, which are the main speed control options that it runs in National decks. So you have Thunder Wave as your best damage control, speed control, which is, it's okay, but then it's equivalent to a Purloin as far as what it can actually do for speed control. So then you're looking at, okay, what other status moves does it really get? It gets Encore, okay, cool, useful. Light Screen, cool, useful. But both of those kind of feel like tech moves. Helping Hand, Weather Control, yes. And then you can maybe self-swagger. Is there an own tempo here? Is there an own tempo? I don't think so. I don't see that. I mean, you can run Lumberry Donphan. You can run Lumberry Gyarados to give them +2. That's cool, but I don't know. I don't know about Volbeat. We'll have to see if it's really able to perform as a prankster with these stats. But anyways, speed control here in Uxie. Magnezone obviously being a strong offensive Pokemon as well. So we have Gyarados, Donphan, Magnezone, Hitmonchan being able to have good damage control. Walrein on the cheap can be a good Pokemon using Belly Drum, Swords Dance, and Curse as well. Overall, I think this team has a lot of interesting pieces, a lot of cool Pokemon going on, and for the theme that they're working with, able to really pull off an impressive draft, in my opinion. Coughing, I think, is going to be a really underrated pick. This team actually has a lot of Pokemon that don't need the Focus Sash, and so really just Volbeat, Coughing, maybe Lop, maybe Main, and then very rarely, like maybe against the Sun team, Tangrowth will run a Sash as well. But then you can bring Coughing and just turn off so many abilities, which I think is going to be really, really valuable for this team. And in draft in general, I think people oftentimes draft Weezing with Slacking or Regigigas or even Archeops or something, but that makes these Pokemon so expensive. So if you have a Coughing on your team that's cheap, you can do a lot of really interesting things by shutting down a lot of strategies, and that is a tech that people do need to be prepared for, in my opinion. So I think this team, honestly, I think that I like this team more than Bardo's team. Is it an A tier team or is it a B tier team? I think this team is cohesive enough and has the damage output enough that I would put it at a... The one thing about this team that I didn't notice at first is there's only 11 typings you see here. So there's some repeat typings, the Magnetric, the Magnezone. This is what the Hawk Talk is good for, obviously, or other prep documents. So you're missing a Fire type, there's no Dragon type, there's no Fairy type, so Magnezone is really your only recourse against a Draco Meteor, Latios, or something like that. And there's some other types that you don't have any of as well. No Dark type, so really the only resist to any sort of Psychic moves is going to be Fuchsia or Magnezone, which is okay. And then the only Pokemon that can hit Psychic type super effectively is Volbeat. I think given the limited amount of typings you have going on here, you're going to encounter a lot of uncomfortable situations with opposing Pokemon. So I think this team is going to be here in the B tier. What's next? Grandma's Togepisses. Grandma's Togekisses. With the round 1 mascot pick, obviously Togekiss being... I expected this Pokemon to go first. If I had first pick, I would have probably gone for Clefable, but this would have been a consideration as well. So this Pokemon, I mean, this team really has 8 Pokemon, which is such an interesting choice on this draft board, given that, these 1-point Pokemon pretty much are all worthless. So you're saying, even the 4 or 5 tier point Mons are just worthless. I'm not even going to bother with those. I'm just going to say I'm getting 3 garbage, does not exist, never coming to a game unless I'm trying to, literally joke around Pokemon by bringing whatever. There's not even a beat up Pokemon here to get rattled Choice Band Poochyena. What a shame. So really it's just these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Pokemon. And are these Pokemon good? Hell yes. I mean, obviously, Togekiss, Gengar, Garchomp, Machamp I think is super underrated. It has Wide Guard and Quick Guard, Knock Off, Bulk Up. Light Screen maybe you're not using so much, but I mean, it's also damn strong with Guts. And it's right there in that speed tier where it can take advantage of a Tailwind, which you have with Butterfree, yep. Or it can perform in Trick Room, which you have with Gengar. Well, Gengar is a Trick Room setter and it's immune to Fake Out, but with Redirection, maybe it could work. And then you have Gengar and Trick Room, which, maybe it's not the ideal situation, but this team does have so many threats that you are going to have to be prepared for a lot. So obviously, Garchomp, stupid strong. Togekiss, stupid strong, stupid good. And then Melodic, obviously, is doing a really good job of supporting the Gengar and the Machamp by preventing Intimidate from coming to weaken them, and by being a great switch into Ice-type moves for Garchomp and Togekiss as well. Now, on that note, the issue with these 8 Pokemon is that 3 of them are Flying types, and 2 of them are 4 times weak to Rock Slide. So this team is just going to get destroyed a lot of the time by like a Scarf Rock Slide Pokemon that's just taking out Butterfree, taking out Moltres, doing big damage to Togekiss, Garchomp and Machamp are obviously resisting, but it's still doing a lot to Gengar. You know, Melodic can take them out, but that's a big issue that you're going to have to be facing. Also, 3 weaknesses to Ice: Togekiss, Garchomp, Butterfree. And there's also a lot of typings here that are missing. You know, if you subtract these 3, you have 11 types, just like the last team we were talking about. And this one doesn't have a Steel type. This one doesn't have an Ice type for taking out other faster dragons. So really you're going to have to rely on like a Scarf Togekiss or a Ditto to remove a Latios or a Latias that's going to be able to one-shot Garchomp or something like that. Which obviously Togekiss is a good answer, but if you're following me, then it may not be able to actually knock them out. So obviously strong Pokemon, but if you're going for 8 Pokemon, the synergy really has to be there. And I think there's a little bit of wasted value on this Ditto, this Butterfree, this Moltres maybe, when all 3 of them are in some ways going to be a little bit less effective than Togekiss. Ditto, I think, a little bit less effective than Gengar as a tech piece. Moltres, a little bit less effective than Togekiss as a flying type. Obviously, it is a fire type, but no grass type here, so you're going to have problems with opposing Rage Powder. I don't know. I think this core is strong, but because of the weaknesses it has and the fact that there's only 8 Pokemon here, I think this team is probably going to be B tier. How does it compare with Samax's team? I think Samax's team is scarier to go against, personally. Even though this team clearly has these 4 really, really scary Pokemon to go up against. Okay, next, Tay. Tay, the very, very scary coach who everyone knows is so good at the game. Who has a very interesting team, who starts right off with this Fairy Dragon Steel core. Not Fairy Dragon Steel, Fire, Water, Grass. Arcanine, Abomasnow, Slowking. Arcanine clearly so strong, good offensively, has extreme speed, has Intimidate, Snarl, Will-O-Wisp stuff, has Safeguard, has Morning Sun, which of course Abomasnow is great combo with. Helping Hand in this generation too as well. I mean, this thing is definitely like one of those mons that can carry a team for sure. But there is support here to back it up. Weather Control, I think, is really important, and it's great that this team picked it up early. I think round 2 Abomasnow is very interesting. But, I mean, it's an Icy Wind Pokemon, it's an Ice type, which I think is actually quite valuable here. It's a Grass type, which I think is valuable as well. Maybe Swords Dance, Aurora Veil for additional damage control here, and then you have Screens here with Slowking as well. I mean, this team is doing a good job of playing that control, going to be doing a lot of switching around, taking hits for each other, damage control things there, which makes the round 2 Abomasnow pick all the more interesting, because this Pokemon does have a lot of weaknesses. But I digress. Obviously, Trick Room Setter here, very good. One of the few Pokemon that's going to be able to consistently get up Trick Room in this format. Moving on, Aerodactyl, strong Tailwind, so clearly there's some strong speed control going on here. You have Tailwind with Aerodactyl, you have Trick Room here, you have Icy Wind with Abomasnow, so that's pretty much enough. And then in addition to that, you've got the 90 speed Nuzzle coming out from Pikachu. In addition, this Pokemon has Wide Guard, which is always going to be a useful tool in a no Dynamax format. Did this one really go round 5? I mean, it's got 3 different typings. Maybe you can run String Shot. I don't see it. What are the stats on this thing? Wormadam. 60, 85, 105 defenses. Oh, it's different depending on the form. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, so it's 60, 95, 95 most of the time you're going to be using it. Interesting. Quiver Dance is a thing. It's slow. Does it get other setup options that would be interesting? Oh, Stealth Rock, very, very useful. Metal Sound, Skill Swap isn't going to be particularly useful. I don't know. I don't know about this Pokemon this early. It has the Overcoat to not take hail damage. That's what it is. Okay, I see. But it's also a second 4 times weakness to fire, which, you know, you got the Flash Fire here, but and the Fire Resist here, but still, I mean, that's pretty scary to have that lined up. And then Linoon. You know, I'm very, very interested to see how Tay performs with this team, because we know that Tay is a very skilled coach and will be able to do well regardless, but I want to know if this Wormadam and this Linoon are really going to be able to do work. Obviously, Clefairy, Pikachu, and even Spiritomb, Nidoqueen, and Hitmonlee to a degree are going to be consistent in what they do. Linoon, I mean, such a high-risk, high-reward Pokemon, right? It's really just Belly Drum, Extreme Speed, or nothing. and with only Clefairy for redirection, and then 2 Fake Outs, Pikachu, and Hitmonlee, I don't know. We'll have to see if that's going to really be able to pull it off. But, I mean, if Tay is able to use this Linoon well in the first few weeks, then the opponents are going to be forced to, bring their Cheelon berries, bring their Ghost and Steel and Rock types to try to defend against this thing. We'll see. Clefairy, round 7, obviously big fall from grace without the Eviolite, but it still has Focus Sash, and honestly, this team doesn't have that many Sash users. I mean, Abomasnow may need it some weeks, Aerodactyl may need it some weeks, Wormadam may need it, but really it's mainly going to be on Clefairy, I think, because Pikachu wants a Light Ball, and everything else in general is going to be bulky enough to take a hit or two. So you can work it, and you can also use, of course, a Mental Herb if you want to avoid it getting taunted. But obviously, I mean, it's Clefairy, it does Friend Guard, Follow Me things, so it can definitely help out with that. No Helping Hand here, unfortunately, which is frankly a big blow for Clefairy, but it does have Life too, and Heal Pulse and Moonlight and Screens and some other things that I think are going to be interesting in this format. Pikachu, no Follow Me here in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, but it does have Fake Out, it does have Nuzzle, it has dual screens? What? That's awesome. And obviously very strong damage output with the Light Ball. Interesting to note, this team has crazy priority. Extreme Speed Arcanine, Ice Shard Abomasnow, Extreme Speed Linoon, Extreme Speed Pikachu, Fake Out Pikachu, Fake Out Hitmonlee, Sucker Punch, and Shadow Sneak on Spiritomb. Did it get Shadow Sneak? Spiritomb, Sneak. It does, yeah. So that's a lot of priority, and I think Tay clearly prioritized that in their drafting. Spiritomb, I think, I don't remember how much it costs, but hopefully not too much, because it is one of those Pokemon that it can Snarl, it can Will-O-Wisp, it can do a lot of stuff, it can Calm Mind, but it's just not quite as bulky as you need it to be. It's really slow, so it needs that Trick Room, which Slowking being the only setter is workable for sure. But, it'll definitely need to find the right matchups to get in there. Nidoqueen, I think, is cool. I think Nidoqueen at round 10 is super strong. I think this is going to be a really good Pokemon here, and the fact that Tay had the points left to get this Pokemon, I think, is impressive, especially with the coverage it gets. It's definitely going to be able to put in some good work. And then Hitmonlee, being the last Pokemon, got Fake Out. I believe it gets the Wide Guard. Hitmonlee with the Wide Guard, Hitmonchan with the Quick Guard, and then Hitmontop with both. Bullshit how Hitmontop just gets everything. Fake Out, Helping Hand, those are valuable things. You can do Bulk Up maybe. Unfortunately, no Terrain Seeds, no normal gems, so proccing the Unburden is going to be very interesting. You may have to run just like a Citrus Berry or something. Maybe you can run a substitute set with like a Lychee Berry or something. Of course, there's other ways you could remove your item. You could do you could potentially run Fling with maybe an Iron Ball to be slow and then go really fast and do a lot of damage as a Dark type attack, maybe to a opposing Psych type or something like that. I don't know, it's interesting. But this team, I think it does a lot right. There's some things that I question, I'm not sure about, and there's no one Pokemon that's exerting a ton of offensive pressure is my big concern. But I think Tay's going to be able to work it well. So I think this is going to be our first A-tier team. All right, moving on to the Minchinos. C is short for Chicago Minchinos? Something like that. I don't remember. Sorry, James. Heatran, Crobat, Ambipom, Feraligatr, Medicham, Wigglytuff, Carnivine, Haunter, Sharpedo, Jolteon, Castform. This is a cool team. I think we can, I don't want to say totally forget about it, but this Castform is the third normal type on the team. I think it's 3 points, and I don't know if I trust Castform to be doing much of anything. I've used it before in BGC as like a stockpile minimize, like rest set or something like that. But I don't know. We'll see if it ever really performs. So just paying attention to the top 10. Heatran obviously a super duper strong pick, being fucking the best fire type in the format and the best steel type in my opinion, besides maybe Scizor. But such great damage output, great defensive capabilities as well. What kind of tech stuff does it have? You've got damage control as well if you want with Will-O-Wisp, not the slowest taunt in the game. Flash Fire as well is a good immunity, I think, here. If you're facing against like maybe a Sun team, something I might be paying attention to. Of course, the issue with Heatran that you need to be concerned about is the ground weakness. And this is covered well with, you got the Carnivine for any single target ground moves, which there aren't really too many of. Crobat with the immunity. Haunter as well with the immunity. But with no Air Balloon here, you're really going to be forced to be running Shuckleberry a lot. Or like a substitute set if you know your opponent's got a slower ground type. So by that measure, very important question for this team, where is the wide guard? There is no wide guard. That's going to be a pretty big issue if you're going to be building your team around Heatran. However, you don't have to because you have other good Pokemon. You've got Crobat, obviously, very fast speed control. Ambipom as well being very fast, and the fast Thunder Wave going on there, as well as a fast Fake Out, and a Jolteon. So this team definitely has a fast upper end that's very strong. But the Trick Room, not terrible either. Haunter, being a Trick Room setter, okay. Maybe it's terrible, maybe it's not great. But it's definitely not so fast that it's going to be totally boned in Trick Room matchups. Wigglytuff can do things maybe. Carnivine can definitely be slow and throw off some sleep powders in Trick Room depending on the matchup. And obviously Heatran, not the fastest thing in the world, can definitely perform as well. Ambipom I think is just a great pickup. Fast, Fake Out, Taunt. I mean, it's an Ambipom. The stats are pretty weak. But, I mean, for a low tier Pokemon, it can definitely perform. And I think the round 3 pickup for it was maybe early, but maybe justified. What else is there? You can see that there's a priority on Fake Out, a second Fake Out here with Medicham. Obviously very strong Fake Out with Pure Power and offensive coverage as well. Interesting to note, 77, 78, 80. Pretty cramped speed tiers here, as well as the double 95, 45, 46. Not the end of the world, but something to note. Wigglytuff with the damage. Intimidate reduction, or trying to scare off Intimidators with those big competitive boosts. Round 6, Wigglytuff, I'm not sure. I don't really trust in Wigglytuff, but I hope that it can really perform and do something. Carnivine, probably one of the weaker redirectors, but, I mean, it works well with the Heatran being resistant to water and ground. Haunter being another interesting Pokemon. Really, really frail, obviously, but it has that Trick Room. It has fast Will-O-Wisp. No Icy Wind here, but I could see it working. Sharpedo as well. I mean, there's a clear emphasis on speed here at this point with the Speed Boost Sharpedo. And, this Pokemon has strong offensive stats, which I think people oftentimes forget. It seems like this frail thing that you can kind of reduce, but it is really a true glass cannon. And then Jolteon at round 10, I think, is definitely like a strong late game pickup. It's an electric type. This team definitely wants to deal with bulky waters that might get in the way of a strong setup for Alligator or a Heatran. But it's also got great speed. And with no ground type, it's going to be an electric resist that this team otherwise is relying on Carnivine for. Although no Electro Web in this generation, just Helping Hand and Thunder Wave. Although it does get Light Screen and Charm for good damage reduction. So very, very much an interesting Pokemon. Overall, this team has good offense in Heatran and Feraligatr, but maybe Sharpedo and Medicham can do some damage, but besides Heatran and Feraligatr, most of the damage is quite frail. And then the team can go fast pretty well, but I'm not sure about how well this team can go slowly, especially with Haunter being the only Trick Room Pokemon. Overall, there's definitely some strong synergy here, but I think there could definitely be some things about this team that could be improved a little bit. So I think this team is going to be in B as well. I think I like it. Do I like it more? Yes, I like it more than the top-heavy team, but a little bit less than our funny Tangrowth team. Is that right, or do I like this team more? Heatran, Feraligatr, Crobat versus... No, I think I really do like Samax's team a lot. I think it's really impressive, so I think it's still going to stay at the top of B. Moving on to Poppin's team. Just like Tay, starting right off with the Fire, Water, Grass. Interesting, this team only has 11 types. Right off the bat, I'm noticing that. There's Psychic, Normal, Dark, Psychic, Poison, Normal, Fairy. Kind of all these same types getting repeated here. And then dual Water types, dual Grass types. Interesting that there's lacking a lot of important types that may be valuable. But let's talk about this core here. I mean, Gastrodon clearly so strong, offering that great redirection for water moves that might be aimed at Entei. Rotom and Jumpluff being a good response to those ground type moves, so really just worrying about rock type moves, but Gastrodon can resist those. Rotom can use its moves to take out rock types or ground types, and Empoleon can do good things against those as well as resisting a rock slide. Entei is a first pick I personally question a little bit. Obviously, it's a physical mon. It has that Sacred Fire. It has that extreme speed. That's immune to Intimidate and Fake Out. Very good. But at 100 speed, it's a Fire type, which is a pretty mid-tier typing. Doesn't have the best coverage in this game. I'm just really not sure that this is the kind of Pokemon that's going to be carrying a team, and I think it does need to be rounded out well with other good Pokemon. Gastrodon is, I think, a similar problem. It's a good Pokemon, but I don't know if it's really the type that is going to fully carry a team, because there's going to be a lot of matchups where it's just not going to come when your opponent has 2-3 grass types or strong grass type attacks that maybe Entei isn't always going to be able to remove. Rotom then as a third pick. You know, Rotom I think is a really good Pokemon. Most of my draft plans had Rotom until I ended up taking Raikou. It's got the screens, got the Thunderwave, got the Will-O-Wisp, got Nasty Plot for setup, and it's quite bulky. I think Rotom is one of the better grass types in the format. Jumpluff as well being one of the better grass types, although I don't really know if you need both. But for third pick Rotom, you know, there's a lot of Pokemon that can do things better than that. Interestingly enough, I think Poppin, interesting to me and me alone, picked a lot of Pokemon that I was also interested in. Really, the only one on this team that I didn't consider was Entei and Swalot here. But I think a lot of these Pokemon are good value-wise and good at being versatile. So Jumpluff, I think, is one of the biggest steals of the draft, and it makes sense that it went at 4, because for, I think it was like 11 or 9 points or something, this thing is super fast. It has Rage Powder, it has Sleep Powder, it has Strength Sap. Swords Dance I don't know if it's going to use, but it has Helping Hand, and it has Cotton Spore, which isn't listed here, which is just a great speed control move. And this Pokemon's really going to be able to do a lot for this team as far as managing speed control, damage, redirection, and spreading status. So Jumpluff I like a lot. Dual grass types in your first 4 picks, I'm not sure about. Empoleon here is now saying, fuck you, you are not going to be intimidating me. My Entei doesn't care. Obviously, these Pokemon don't care, being mainly special attackers. Now, I'm denying your Intimidate. I have another Inner-Focus. And the only Pokemon on my team that cares about Intimidate at all is Ursaring. Is it even worth bringing Intimidate at that point, when you're more likely to be in a world of pain from the Empoleon than to weaken this low-tier Ursaring? Watch out for Ursaring on this team. This thing is going to plow through, especially with the support of dual Trick Room setters, Chimecho and Hypno. But do you need Chimecho and Hypno? That's the question. Do you need grass types Rotom and Jumpluff? I'm not sure. But Umbreon, obviously, we know, being the standout Pokemon from last season, is going to be very, very strong here, especially with no max moves to get in its way. So opponents are really going to have to prep hard for this Umbreon. They're going to have to prep hard for this Gastrodon. Obviously, they're going to have to prep hard for this Entei. They don't want to get slept turn 1 by Jumpluff. So there's a lot of things going on here. Swalot, we looked at some sets in the Discord briefly for Swalot that it could run. I think it's a cheap pick. I think it's kind of a whatever. It's a poison type. I don't have a poison type yet. Jigglypuff, Friend Guard, no Ally Switch here, no Eviolite. It's going to be a Sashmon. It's going to be throwing out a Perish Song or a Screen or something. I'm not really sure what it's going to be doing, but for the price, I'm sure it was very cheap. It can work. So overall, I think this team comes together interestingly. It does in some ways lack damage output that I may be wanting from it. This Ursaring really being the strongest hitter, or maybe the Entei or a Nasty Plot Rotom. It does have a few of these kind of glaring weaknesses, with Gastrodon being weak to grass, Jumpluff being weak to ice, dual psychic types, and lacking in some other typings with only 11 total typings here. But I think overall, I would say maybe if you drop the Hypno or the Chimecho for something else that can offer a bit more X factor to this team, then it could definitely be a strong performer. But I think this team is going to be another one in the B tier. Compared to, I don't like it as much as the top heavy team, but how much do I like it compared to the very first team? I think I like this team more as well. So this team is going to be at the bottom of B. Okay, moving on to Daddy's team. So this team is weird, right? Obviously, these top tiers, every Pokemon here is like, except for the very bottom few, the Bastiodon, the Camerupt, and I think maybe the Togetic. Everything is like between 13 and 8 in value, so this is a totally different drafting strategy. Illumise, so does Illumise get the speed control options that Volbeat doesn't? Does it get Tailwind? No. Does it get String Shot? No. So it's really got similar problems to Volbeat, in my opinion. It's got the Charm and the Fake tiers. That's what it is, and the Helping Hand as well. So there's really going to be a kind of damage control for the opponent and damage amp for this team, which you may notice has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 special attackers, and then maybe Camerupt can be physical. Maybe Bastiodon is going to be attacking at all. Doubtful. Electivire has a stronger physical attack, but oftentimes wants to be running special anyways. Typhlosion has just enough physical attack to maybe sometimes be usable in that way, but really not what it wants to be doing. And then Purugly being the only real physical attacker here. This team is very, very special heavy. And with Cresselia being the clear centerpiece Pokemon, being twice the value of almost everything else, this team is going to be going up against a lot of Light Screens, a lot of Eerie Impulses, if they come, a lot of Snarls, to try to fight back against that. So maybe this is a Purugly team that is centered around Purugly entirely. The fake tiers here from Illumise certainly is going to be helping a lot of Pokemon on this team. But then as far as the individual Pokemon go, all of them are good in some way besides, I would say, Bastiodon is really going to be coming here to spam Wide Guard, sit on the field, but die to ground or fighting type moves. But Cresselia, clearly, obviously a very strong Pokemon, allows this team to have a Trick Room mode in addition to its Tailwind mode with the Lumineon, which I think is a pretty underrated Pokemon. And then just a bunch of like mid-tier interesting Pokemon. So we can go down the line. I mean, Purugly, Defiant is going to be cool. Really, no one's ever going to be bringing Intimidate against this team because the only Pokemon that it would be for would be Electivire. And so Purugly's going to be free from that, and then it can... you can Swagger own Tempo. That's what this is. This is Swagger, right? Yeah. Okay, got it. So you don't have to run Defiant because nobody's running Intimidate, because it's your only physical attacker besides Electivire. So you can run Own Tempo to get the Swagger from Illumise. Got it. Okay, cool. Or you can set up Sun with Illumise, and then you got Sun boosted Typhlosion. Does get Eruption, right? If it gets Eruption, I'm not crazy. Yeah. Sun boosted Eruptions. Morning Sun getting boosted from Cresselia, and then the very fast Chlorophyll Blossom with the Sleep Powder, Strength Sap after you, what have you. Solar Beam, even. Yeah, so overall, I mean, all these Pokemon are interesting. They do different things. Electivire has cool coverage. Lumineon, Soak, Tailwind, pretty good for the cheap price. Typhlosion, so early, so interesting. Makes me think there must be some sort of meme theme going on here. Togetic being a redirector, which this team, I think, is going to benefit from a lot. Doesn't have the greatest setup possibilities, but could definitely do a Quiver Dance with a Blossom, or maybe a Nasty Plot Porygon Z would be very potent. PZ, not quite as strong as it is in Dynamax format, obviously, but still something you need to prep for. You got to have something that can resist or be immune to those normal moves if you don't want to just get blown back by a Scarf or a Specs or a Life Orb or a Nasty Plot set. Not sure about Bastiodon again, like I said. Blossom being able to be slow enough for Trick Room and also effective with the Cresselia or with the Sun from Illumise. Camerupt. Now I'd be very interested to see an Air Point set if this team has a Frost Breath or a Storm Throw. I don't believe there's anything like that on this team unless Lumineon gets... Oh, does anything get Frost Breath in this game, actually? Frost Breath, Frostless, Glalie, Snorunt, and then Storm Throw. concern. Okay, so neither of those are on this team. So it's mainly going to be probably just a solid rock, fire ground type, water moves being redirected by Luminion. Who knows, maybe this is Camera State of Shine. Overall, though, I think this team, it's pretty whack. You know, you're going to be caught off guard every week by what Daddy is bringing, because this team doesn't have a clear direction in any way. So we're going to rank this team, the Philadelphia Ash Whoopers. I think it's going to be C tier. I like it a little bit less than Jordan's compared to Wedgehurst Whimsicots. I think I like it more than that team because it has such an interesting X factor going on. Okay, I'm going to speed through these last few. Rain team 1 of 2. With first pick Weavile, such a cool first pick. Going with Kingdra instead of Politoed is interesting, given that Kingdra does not have muddy water in this. Oh, it does have muddy water. Well, this is what I mean by off the cuff. I was damn wrong about that. Okay, so it can do stuff. You got the fast fake out, so you don't need to worry as much about getting the Ludicolo. That would be the clear best choice for a Rain Sweeper on this team. But this team is clearly not committed entirely to the rain mode. You have a lightning rod here, Rhydon, which, I mean, water moves are getting stronger against it, not that it's living them anyways. So that's part of that core, but really it's like, you know, rain helps Lucario take fire hits better, weakens fire hits being aimed at this centerpiece Metapod, but other than that, it's really just like a mini core here, and then the rest of the team is the rest of the team. And does the rest of the team hold up? Well, beat up Weavile with Lucario is definitely something to be prepared for, but Lucario not quite fast enough to fully take full advantage of that as a total glass cannon, but it also has inner focus to prevent Intimidate and Fake Out, which is strong. Stantler being an Intimidate Pokemon with Trick Room, very interesting, probably going to be bulky enough to live some hits. I mean, with that Intimidate boost, 73, 62, 65, maybe just barely to get that off. But of course you have a secondary Trick Room here, immune to Taunt in Xatu, which is cool. Shuckle, I mean, what the fuck is this thing doing on a team? I guess it's got the power split or the guard split thing, right? So maybe that's something. Rapidash, Ally Switch, interesting. Dual Ally Switch. Are we going to see an Ally Switch team maybe? Has the ability to shut down physical attackers with the Will-O-Wisp and the Charm. Muck, you know, these picks are interesting. I'd love to know Casey's thought process here. But Muck, I mean, mainly I think going to be a stockpile Pokemon for the most part. Maybe it's going to try to Poison Touch or Stench things. Lightning Rod obviously here. Xatu with the Tailwind in the Trick Room, very good speed control. Metapod, obviously, we don't even have to talk about how strong this Pokemon is. So overall, I think, you know, this team has damage output from the Weavile and the Kingdra. Maybe from the Lucario if you do the beat up setup. But then these low tiers, they're all kind of mid. I would almost want to see this team getting rid of some of these lower value Pokemon for like some 2 or 1 pointers to really upgrade themselves to some secondary modes. Because you're going to be relying a lot on this Stantler, this Rapidash, this Muck, this Rhydon, this Xatu for some damage output if Kingdra and Weavile don't have a good matchup, and Lucario, so I'm not sure about this team. I think this team is probably going to be compared to Jordan's team. Interesting. I think I like Jordan's team just a little bit more than KC's team. Well, the Weavile is so good. It can come every week and do a lot of work. No, I think this goes right here, right under Jordan's team. Okay, Andela Unknowns. Boom. Oh shit. Okay, here's a very different team from what we've been seeing. There, right here, Latias, Mamoswine, Scizor, Blastoise. Here is some freaking damage output, but obviously Blastoise with the Shell Smash. Houndoom round 4. It's crazy that thing went that early, but I mean 95. It's a Snarl user. It's a Taunt. It's got the Fire typing. That's pretty good. Redirection from Furret, Wide Guard from Torterra, Defiant from Primeape. I mean, this team comes together. I think Bohm did a quite good job drafting. Latias, obviously, just a super duper strong Pokemon with insane Tech options, Tailwind, great damage output with fucking Draco Meteor, Calm Mind. Scizor got the setup as well for it. I mean, it's a redirector with Frisk, not terrible. It can maybe just barely live a few hits, right? Yeah, 85, 64, 55. So if you massively invested in defense, it can take maybe one hit or something like that. Trick Room here with Bronzor. Clearly this isn't a Trick Room team. Maybe that's where it falters the most, is the lack of a slow mode. But, I mean, with this strong offensive start and, respectable lower tiers, I think this team is definitely going to be able to pull it together. This team, frankly, is quite impressive. When you look at some of the other teams, it's like, oh, interesting, there's a lot of Pokemon here that I'm not sure how they're going to be performing. But this team, everything really clearly has a place to me, and I can identify what it's doing, why it was taken here, and that a lot of these Pokemon are going to have a role and a purpose and a strong impact on this team. So I think this is, I don't know, is this an S tier team? Is this an S tier team? What makes a team an S tier team? I think the fact that this team pretty much lacks a Trick Room mode entirely besides the Bronzor. Bronzor means that to me it's not an S tier team, but I think I like it more than Taste Team. So I think this is the best team I've seen so far, and I'm going to put it in A tier. Okay. Had to go. I'm back. Electric's team. So this team overall is really strong. Obviously, the first two picks both being weak to Ghost is not ideal, but you have Sneasel, which is good at removing them, and it's really fast. And then Sentret obviously is immune, so it works as a good redirector. Breloom also really, really strong with these first three. Makes a Fighting Dark Psychic core, offensive core. There's very few Pokemon that can withstand a hit from Latios and from Sneasel and from Breloom, and especially not from those plus Gardevoir. And Breloom is just such a crazy good Pokemon. It's surprising to see it go round 4. Vaporeon and Rotom, I think, are both really great value. Vaporeon is 110 special attack. People oftentimes use it exclusively defensively, and they forget that this Pokemon can be super powerful offensively as well. And Rotom for 4 points is nuts. It's just like, it's a good Pokemon. And compare that to a lot of the stuff that's in 4. Rotom is, I think, definitely one of the best ones it has. Thunderwave, Will-O-Wisp, Screens, Nasty Plot, I mean, that's most of its tools, but it's really effective at that. Mawile for budget Intimidate, I think, is good. I mean, it's a Steel type, it's a Fairy type. This team has 2 Fairies when most teams have none. Obviously, it's a Mawile, so its stats are really, really, really lacking, but especially augmented with a second Steel and Skarmory, which can be obviously very defensive with like a fully Spadef invested spread and Iron Defense or something like that. No body press here. Or it can be like a setup set with Swords Dance Curse. Also a status counter, or a setup counter with the Roar and Whirlwind strat there. Yeah, I think excuse me. Both of these steals have their niches here. Both of them kind of being physically defensive checks to stuff. Mawile reducing physical output, and Skarmory just being able to take a lot of hits. Pair well with the Spadef Wall. Vaporeon and Latios and Gardevoir, who both have a bit more special defense than they do defense. Rounding it out with Sentret makes sense, being the Ghost Immune redirector, and for the low points that it costs, I think it's one of the better picks from down there. Magmar and Hippowdon rounding out the draft. Hippowdon is really interesting, there's a lot of mons on this draft that want Sash, Sneasel, Breloom, Gardevoir maybe if it's not running a choice item. Rotom could totally use Sash, even Mawile sometimes, Sentret for sure, and Magmar as well. And so having Sand set up is Electric was joking about it in the Discord, but it's definitely a flaw with the team. That Sand, not a lot, he was really taking advantage of it. I don't think there's like a Weather Ball user here that is going to be using like a rock type Weather Ball. The only Weather Ball users in the game are, here, listed here. And this team does not have any of these Pokemon. So I'm not sure. But Hippowdon is really interesting as a physically defensive Pokemon with also a strong output with ground type moves. And it is important, I think, for this team to have a strong ground type since they have Telepathy, they have Levitate here, and they have a Flying type as well. So they will be able to use that very, very strong stab as well as being able to possibly do like a curse set with Slack Off. Maybe even like does Hippowdon get Amnesia? I think Hippowdon does have the ability to boost its special defense. Doesn't get Amnesia, maybe not, but it could run like an Apricot Berry or something if it wanted to. Oh, Stockpile, there it is. It could run Stockpile to be really effective in that way. Magmar doesn't have Follow Me here, so it's I don't know how much it went for. I don't think very much, but I mean Belly Drum, Will-O-Wisp. It's 93 is actually quite fast. So a Magmar can definitely be good, and having a fire type on this team to round out the grass and the water type is always good. So electric, where does electric go? Well, I think this is an A tier team. I think this is quite strong. You have really strong hitters in Latios, Gardevoir, Sneasel for sure, Breloom. Hippowdon can also hit pretty hard as well, and you have a lot of good value going on here, and then there's definitely the potential for defensive play as well. Vaporeon, Latios can do defensive things, Gardevoir can do defensive things, Sneasel has obviously Fake Out, and Icy Wind and Snarl is powerful. Pretty competent redirector here, and Sentret, obviously the Skarmory as well, being a very defensive Pokemon, so I think this team does a lot of things well. Now, how does it compare to Tay's team, to the Andela Unknowns, to Bohm's team? That's one we just ranked. I think it's pretty comparable to this one. How does it compare to this team? I think it's comparable to this one. So is this the best team we've seen so far? Or is this team better? You know, Electric has no dead picks on this team. Sentret has a very important role, and I believe it's the lowest value Pokemon. It may not even be. I mean, Rotom may be the lowest value at 4. Whereas Bohm has the Unknown and the Bronzor. And Bohm's team still feels like it has similar strength level, but it has a dead slot, whereas Electric's team does not. I suppose the Trick Room is not incredible, with Gardevoir being the only Trick Room user. But Gardevoir is bulky. And Hippowdon, I think, is effective as a Trick Room Pokemon. I believe Sentret gets after you, doesn't it? If it does, then I think this will be the best team we've seen so far. It does not. Not here. Well, in that case, how does it compare in the ranking? Electric, Boom. You know, I still think this team is the strongest, even with some flaws, even with definitely a weaker Trick Room mode. I think the synergy here is really, really strong, and there's a lot of great value. There's a lot of powerful Pokemon. I think this team is the best one we've seen so far, but it's definitely close between this one and the Andela Unknowns. Okay, Rain Part 2. Steve. So, this is an interesting Rain team. It's so interesting to me that he picked Pelipper before Politoed. In most VGC formats, I think Politoed would go first, especially because even a draft like this 4 times electric weakness is rough. But what it lacks in supporting options with like the Helping Hand or the Yawn, it makes up for with Tailwind and Wide Guard. And as well, you know, Knock Off Soak are cool too. And U-Turn even. You could Scarf it and get out of there to preserve it for a secondary Rain setup later on. Tailwind, clearly very good. You know, there's a lot of Tailwind setters left on the board, I believe. So it's not like a thing you needed to get round 1, but I think it makes sense to prioritize this Rain setter. But Wide Guard, I think, is really, really valuable. Because in this format, there's going to be all kinds of spread moves, especially against this team with the Flying, Ice, and only 1 resist. There's going to be some Rock Slides coming out for sure. But also, you know, I can see the potential for Earthquake coming out to try to hit the Raichu, to try to hit the Steelix, or even, you know, people potentially using like a Muddy Water or a Surf back against this team. Maybe not, given the Dry Skin and the Storm Drain. Okay, that was a stupid thing to say. But definitely I can see spread moves being a big thing in this format, and having Wide Guard right off the bat, as well as the obvious Drizzle, is smart. Raichu pick 2. You know, they ended up with Ludicolo, which I think makes sense as the thing you really want next. So, I dig it. The thing with the Raichu pick that I disagree with is that you could have had something like a Garchomp, right? One of these top tier Pokemon that lasted until round 2, and it's possible Raichu would have gone. You still would have been able to get Manectric or something, but you could have gotten a secondary option to your rain mode, so it isn't just like, oh, all my value is rain, and then I have just like a couple other tech pieces like the Steelix that can come later. What Steve ended up doing was what I'm suggesting, which is picking up a different mode entirely in this Slack Wheeze combo. But if you notice, and if you watch his draft analysis, this is recorded after he released that draft analysis, almost all of these Pokemon are really benefiting from their ability. And most of them, like, are picked exclusively for their ability. Drizzle, Lightning Rod, Swift Swim, Dry Skin, although Jinx can perform without it, Trace, Download, Analytic are all fantastic abilities on Porygon 2, and without any of them, it will still be able to fulfill a function, but not as well. Storm Drain, Steelix less needing the ability, more so just because for its Steel Stab and its Ground Stab, there's not really anything to boost with Sheer Force unless you're using Iron Tail, but there is the consideration that you could be using Sturdy as well, given that you're increasing the power of water type moves, and Steelix could always live one hit from that. Intimidate here clearly, and then Big On is Bag On, as it were. And removing those abilities with Weezing is really not the best. You're most likely going to be bringing Weezing and Slacking together. Then Weezing will go down because your opponents are going to be targeting down Weezing, and then you'll have a semi-useless Slacking, or maybe you Gastro Acid it, and then a bunch of other Pokemon. And if the Slacking goes down first, then the Weezing is going to be hurting you a lot more than it's going to be helping you, even though it has tools, Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, Sludge Bomb. You could even run Levitate sometimes. I don't know if it makes sense to pick on a team like this. I generally would rather have Weezing alongside a Pokemon like Zapdos, who is oftentimes being targeted by Rock Slides and Ice Beams anyways, so the static is not going to be doing much. Not that Zapdos is the best in this format or anything like that. Or even a Pokemon like Togekiss, which gets a lot of value out of Serene Grace and Super Luck, but is very frequently being a Follow Me Pokemon anyways, and thus doesn't mind being next to Weezing. Although, I don't know if it would be clicking Follow Me next to Weezing. I digress. The point is, a lot of these Pokemon need their abilities, and Weezing, you're paying a lot for it for a Pokemon that is anti-synergistic with the rest of the team. But as far as the team construction itself, independent of these high-value, high-risk, but also high-reward picks, I think there's a lot of positives going for it. I think specifically Cradily, Jinx, Ludicolo, Raichu, Pelipper is a really strong core. I think this is a little early for Porygon 2. It's really just not as bulky as you want it to. Most people forget this, but its strongest stat is actually special attack with like 105, with its HP, defense and special defense being in the 80 to 90s. But it is, still fairly bulky, still quite strong if it gets off a download boost, and I think will be capable on this team for sure, especially with 2 Trick Room setters. And this team does have 2, Steelix for sure, and then Cradily as a secondary Trick Room Pokemon. And, we'll see if Snubbull comes to games. I can definitely see it coming versus a Garchomp to intimidate it and prevent that Garchomp from being able to just spam Dragon Claw. Or certain other scenarios against teams that are very weak to intimidate and also are using Dragon type or potentially even Dark or Fighting type moves. Although I think Snubbull will be largely useful for intimidate and for its immunity to have any sort of function on this team. We'll see. I'm excited to see what Steve does with Snubbull. Steelix offers a secondary wide guard as well, which is worth noting. I really don't know how many spread moves are being targeted at this team besides the Rock Slide that I mentioned before, but I'm bringing them here because with the 2 wide guards, it's going to be rough. Triple Fake Out, obviously very strong as well. Yeah, I think this team has some flaws. I really wish Wheezing and Slacking were different Pokemon, just like any other kind of Pokemon. I think Steve may have been too excited about this combo and may have neglected, like, Metagross is still available, right? Yeah, it is. I think Metagross would be a lot stronger of a pick here, even though there is a Steelix already. I think that might do more for the team and be more flexible than a very kind of rigid Wheezing Slacking mode. But it is high impact, so you have to prep for the Pelipper Ludicolo, and you have to prep for the Wheezing Slacking. So overall, I think this team is good. I think it's kind of bottom of A, top of B. It's definitely better than Jordan's, for sure. How does it compare to team number 1, the New York Aqua Jets? It's better than this team, yeah, because it does have so much impact. And I think it's better than, I guess it's middle of B. Or top of B, right, no, I was saying top of B, bottom of A, my mistake. I will put it, how does it compare to Sam Axe's team? This team is very cool. I think I'm going to put this at the bottom of A. Right there. Behind Tay. Behind Tay? Or above Tay? Or above Tay? This team does have probably the strongest synergy of any team on the board in the draft, even though it does have that really difficult synergy with Wheezing and Slacking. I'm going to move it up above Tay's. How does it compare to Bone? No, I think I do like this team. Oh, man, no, because Steve has the bag and the Snubble. No, this team is very, very powerfully synergistic. I think I'm going to put it here. The more I look at it, the more I like it. And I think Jordan was right when he commented on the video and said it's one of the strongest teams. But I do think Electric's team here just narrowly beats it out due to this team having a bit more usage of value. I don't think Bagon is real Pokemon. And not having any big issues with that anti-synergy. Tom Zom B. Azumarill Pachirisu, obviously right off the bat you're being confronted with this belly drum combo, and you really have to hit this Azumarill with a poison or grass type move, although even a grass type move would be risky, while faking out the Pachirisu if you want to prevent it from just turn 1 belly drum and sweeping you. However, Haze exists. Fake out the Azumarill, taunt. There's ways around it, and Pachirisu, for all of its fame, is not quite as bulky as you really want it to be. I do think it is better in a limited dex context on ladder than it is in draft, because you can calc for specific Pachirisu interactions in draft and get a lot of one shots that you really don't want to be happening with a round 2 redirector. 60 HP, 70 defense, 90 special defense. I mean, you target that thing with a close combat from a Hitmonchan or a something like that, or a Primeape, and that thing is probably going to drop, which is really not what you want out of round 2 redirection. Zapdos, very interesting, obviously, a very potent Pokemon historically, loses out on Heat Wave in this generation. I don't believe it gets Tailwind right now either, so it's really going to be doing... does it even get Hurricane? I don't know if Zapdos even gets a move that isn't a electric type stab. It gets Fly, it gets Discharge. No Air Slash either. Wow, Jesus. So this thing is running like T-Bolt, Discharge, Volt Switch, and then Thunderbolt, Ancient Power, Roost. So it's fully walled by any Pokemon with Lightning Rod, any team with a ground type. And yet it's still quite potent, just having really high base stats. I don't remember exactly how much value this was, but it's an interesting Pokemon. Luckily, you do have Azumarill to counter the ground types you might be facing. But I don't know. I'm not sure about Zapdos in this format. I think round 3 was a bit early for it. Registeel as well. No body press. It can set up defensively, but it's really not doing very much damage. And I think in a non-max format, no Seismic Toss either. This Pokemon is coming up against a crucial issue, which is that it can get taunted, um, it can get phased, it can get hazed, much more likely, and other Pokemon are going to be running setup and recovery moves as well. So the stuff that it was really good at doing in Sword and Shield, I don't know if it's quite as good here. Flygon, I think, is really, really cool. It's round 5 Flygon is awesome. That's like really, I think, quite a good pickup to get. It's fast. It has Dragon Dance for setup. It has Roost for recovery. I mean, it's really powerful typings, and I think quite valuable. Being one of the very few dragons, can still spam Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw, Specs Draco Meteor, those kinds of things. I think this is quite an effective pick. Sceptile, like a lot of the other Unburdened Mons, loses to not having terrain seeds going on, of course, is an issue. But it can still do a lot. I mean, it's obviously still very fast. It has Swords Dance. It can run a Citrus Berry set. It has Quick Guard, which is really, really cool. And just having that great fast speed tier, I think, is definitely effective. Let's see. I wonder if a fast Bulldoze here would make sense, because you have Shedinja, Flygon, and Zapdos, who all don't mind being bulldozed. No clear body on Registeel here, but that's fine. You're not really worried about Registeel's speed stat too much. But, it's a grass type to round out this Fire, Water, Grass. Flareon, it's an interesting Pokemon. There is no Trick Room setter here outside of Kadabra. And then a Azumarill, there's a Registeel, there's a Flareon. I don't know about Flareon. It's interesting for sure, and it's got some tricks up its sleeve. It's got Helping Hand, Baby Doll Eyes, Charm, Will-O-Wisp, Beyond, Curse. I believe it has Wish as well. Guts, obviously, it's very strong. But, I mean, it's got very frail physical defenses and very slow compared to a lot of other Pokemon, so you really need the speed control for it, but there's no Trick Room here, and, well, there's Trick Room in Kadabra, and there's very limited speed control elsewhere, no Tailwind. Maybe you're relying on Nuzzle from Pachirisu, but then again, your opponents are going to be bringing their electric types, they're going to be bringing their ground types anyways, and their lightning rod Pokemon, so I'm not sure about that one. But Shedinja, I think, is cool. No ally switch is tricky, but I think it definitely is going to be a Pokemon you have to prep for sure, because it can win. I don't believe Azumarill... Oh, Azumarill does have Soak. Okay, so you have a Soak user here. And then Drapion is cool as well. I think Drapion is a super underrated pick at pick 9 out of the draft. Really strong. Swords Dance, Snarl, gets Toxic, which could be really cool with the Registeel. Maybe that's a combo that's going on. Fast Taunt as well, 95. Great as a Dark type, as a Poison type. I think Drapion is definitely a cool pickup. Eevee, I don't know about. I'm not sure. Helping Hand, Yawn, Baby Doll Eyes, Charm. But I mean, it's an Eevee, and there's already a lot of Sash competition. Pachirisu, Sceptile. I think that's really Shedinja's only viable item, besides like a Spell Tag or something like that. Because with the Sash, it can live one hit, and then Azumarill can soak it, and then your opponents are going to have another massive issues to deal with. Kadabra, I think, is strong offensively. I mean, it's good for removing fighting types, poison types. Poison types could be an issue for Azumarill for sure, and for Sceptile as well, but being your only Trick Room setter bothers me. Inner Focus, I suppose, but it's, again, another Sash user. I think these last two picks, I would have loved to see something, maybe just a bulkier Trick Room setter. I don't know if Hypno was around. Bronzor, I think, ended up on another team, but could have been picked here over Eevee, potentially, to be making Azumarill and Flareon a lot more effective. Overall, I think this team is cool. It has a lot of stuff going for it. It just really does lack in the speed control departments, and the damage output does rely on Belly Drum for Azumarill, Dragon Dance for Flygon maybe, and nothing else really has a strong offensive stat besides Zapdos. which of course is having an issue being walled by a lot of types. So I think this team, let me remind myself once again, how does it compare to this team? This team is being a benchmark. I do like this team more. And then James's team, the Minchinos, I think I like this team more as well. But I think I like Crocodile Dundee a bit more than Grandma's Togekiss, just because those 8 Pokemon do not quite have the synergy you want. And then last, but certainly not least, what's his name? Wunderkind? Is that how you pronounce it? Team Blue! Braff. Now this team, it's got a great color scheme. It's even got, orange going on. It's like the dual color team. I don't know if Braff meant this on purpose, but it's all blue, and then every Pokemon has a little bit of red or a little bit of orange on it. Snorlax has maybe a tan, which is a shade of brown, which is a shade of orange. Which I think is fun. It looks super great, and these Pokemon are going to look great on a team lineup together. And he didn't even have to resort to using shiny types, shiny colored Pokemon like Jordan. So, assessing the actual team, great fast speed with Azelf and Salamence. No Icy Wind or anything like that. No super fast Thunder Wave and no Tailwind. So the fast mode does lack speed control. Well, there are 2 Trick Room setters here, so this team could very well be seen as a Trick Room first team, a team that's focused on that mode. And I mean, Cranidos has 120 attack, right? Like, it's fucking strong. Yeah, 125. So it's definitely a worthwhile pick in the 4-point tier. Not so much about Quava. And Carvana, I think, actually could work. You protect once, and then you can use it to do some damage. If you really need that dark stab, Fampi we can ignore. It doesn't really do much. I think Azelf is cool. It's very fast. It's very strong. I think it has a lot of interesting tech options going on. Acid Block Combined, Screens, Thunder Wave, Prison Trick Room, and Trick Room as well. Taunt. Very, very cool there. Rotom Wash at round 6, super cool. I mean, I think the first 4 in particular, Salamence, Bronzong, Snorlax, Rotom Wash, are going to be able to come to a lot of games, in addition to maybe the Azelf and the Tangela. Toxicroak, I think, was a little early for that Pokemon. It is good, but it is very frail and has a lot of weaknesses, so you really are going to be using it as a kind of here for a short time, not a long time. You really want to, when I look at Toxicroak, I want to take advantage of this Swords Dance, nasty plot bulk up opportunities, but really I think it's going to be more of a fake out. Dish out a Drain Punch or a Poison Jab or something like that, and then probably go down after a few turns. Although it does have a few dual screen setters, Bronzong, Intimidate from Salamence, Rotom Wash, Azelf. And then the Tangela is a redirector, which not the ideal redirector to go along with Snorlax if you want to go for a Belly Drum setup, but it's something. It definitely works, and Tangela is a bulky Trick Room setter, and has Chlorophyll, and it has Sleep Powder, so it could certainly work to put this blue dual water team in the sun, if that's the route you want to go. But yeah, I like this team. It's very pleasing on the eye. Has a good mix of Pokemon. You've got your damage reduction, very strong. You've got a strong slow mode, clearly. Snorlax, Bronzong, that can win games on its own, I'm pretty sure. Especially with 1, 2, 3, 4 Levitate Pokemon and Tangela. I mean, this team would love a better ground type to abuse all of these Earthquake immunities. But still, I think even without that, Snorlax can be using Earthquake to muscle through Steel types that might be a problem for it. Yeah, come to think of it, a lot of these Pokemon have problems with Steel types, so you are relying on Toxicroak and maybe a Fire move from Salamence to break through there, but even still, I think the synergy here is quite strong, and for sticking to the blue theme, I think Braff has created the most effective theme team. I think this team is an A tier team as well. But I would put it, how does it compare to Electric's team? I think this team is really good. I think this team is probably right about here. Just the lack of speed control for the fast mode in any way is concerning, because if the opponent goes for Tailwind, then even though you have fast Mons, Azelf, Salamence, you're just going to be on the back foot and going slow. Or you have to hit a Thunder Wave with Rotom Wash, which we know is the most blind Mon in the history of Pokemon. So, there's me. I'm in the bottom tier. I I have myself here, but I'm not going to show you this section because you'll have to do that research for yourself. Maybe I'll show you just this very corner. Did you know? But rarely gets follow me. And there's my team. It's a Sun team with a bunch of cheap Pokemon here in the middle, which allowed me to jump on these guys early before picking up my Sun core at the very end. And maybe I'll upload a draft analysis. I guess just in case I can talk about my team a little bit. Being on the very back wheel here really sucked, I think. For me personally, it was upsetting. Just not upsetting, but unfortunate, just because I would rather have had a middle pick and then another middle pick for the second round. Because, Grand Bowl could have lasted a few more rounds, for sure. Maybe not a few more rounds, but a few more picks at least. But I had to take it early because I knew a Fairy type wasn't going to get back to me by the end of round 3, right? So I had to get this thing early, which means I wasn't able to fully take advantage of the wheel. I took Raikou, which I thought was the best Pokemon left, and then I took something that I felt like I kind of have to get this now or else I'm never going to get it. And then I felt pretty boxed into a corner at this point. I said, well, nothing is... I can't count on anything getting back to me. And if I want to have any sort of value, which I think you need on this draft board, you need these 4-point Zangoose, 5-point Riolu, Pokemon that are going to be able to come, even though they have low point cost. I'm going to have to do something to secure my draft. And so I picked up the Sun. Torkoal, Swampert, you're not bringing your grass type against Torkoal, Charizard, Victory Bell, and the Demon Yanma. So Swampert is going to be supported there for sure. And yeah, a couple other Pokemon. Driftblim, Tailwind, no Terrain Seeds, but alas. Won't rank my team because I'm pretty biased, but I'm happy with it. I think it's pretty good. So yeah, those are my rankings. I really don't think any of these teams are bad at all in the slightest. Some of the teams in C, I think, definitely have their flaws, but Jordan is working with a meme here. This team, the Philadelphia Ash Whoopers, is just so bizarre to me that he's on a higher level of understanding for me, I'm sure. And then the other two that are down here in the C tier, KC and Mono Mallard, these are still very, very competent teams. I think this team just feels like it wants 1 or 2 transactions to turn some of these kind of 7 or 8 point mons into 3 or 4 point mons, and then upgrade a couple other ones to something with really some oomph behind it. And then this team as well just feels like trade out one of these support mons for another heavy hitter, and then they could easily see themselves moving up into the B or even A tiers. Looks like I didn't do any S tiers. Yeah, I don't think any team here is without flaws, without criticism, and I reserve S tier usually for a team that's really, wow, impressive, shocking, impressive. If a team were able to get Garchomp, Togekiss, and Cresselia, and then still have enough value picks down at the bottom to make it that every Pokemon on the team was bringable, and some other secondary strong offensive options, which I think was maybe just impossible on this board. So yeah, there's my ranking. These are in order among the tiers, so that's how I rank them, with myself, of course, dead last. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.